Hi everyone, a very good evening to all of you. My name is Ashna Sisodia, and today we are going to talk about time zones for the moon. Why are we talking about it? Recently, the European Space Agency has said that a universal timekeeping system for the moon is needed. You should know this that the moon does not have a time zone in the same way that Earth does. However, scientists and astronomers use a system called the Lunar Standard Time to keep track of time on the moon. Lunar Standard Time is based on the position of the sun in the moon's sky, and that is measured in lunar days, with each lunar day lasting about 29.5 Earth days. The start of a lunar day is defined as the moment when the sun crosses the lunar meridian, which is the equivalent of noon on Earth. So the time on the moon would be measured in terms of lunar standard time rather than a specific time zone like we have on Earth. But the European Space Agency is now mooting this idea. They are thinking of having a universal timekeeping system for the moon. Now, the question is why there is a need for the time zone. Well, as such, there are no fixed time zones. Lunar missions have operated on the time of the country that launched them, but with several lunar explorations heading for the launch pad, the European Space Agency has deemed the current system unsustainable. Distinct planning, therefore, is being done for the moon exploration by both the government and private groups worldwide. Every type of conflict can be prevented if the moon has its own time zone. Increased exploration is one of the reasons why we need to have a time zone for moon. You know, uh, China recently completed construction of its own space station and previously hinted that Chinese astronauts would be on the moon by 2030. In fact, South Korea launched its own lunar spacecraft, Danuri, and India has also launched Chandrayaan 2 mission. And these missions will not only be on or around the moon at the same time, but they will often be interacting as well, potentially relaying communications for one another and performing joint observations or carrying out rendezvous operations. With increased exploration comes the potential for miscommunication. That is why a time zone is needed. So, for better communication, as a series of space operations around the moon will require spacecraft and controllers to communicate together and fix their positions independently from Earth. A universal time zone, the main objective of establishing a universal time keeping system for the moon is to streamline contact among the various countries and entities, whether it is public or private, that are coordinating trips to and around the moon. And the last reason which I can say is the successful working model of International Space Station, because it does not have its own time zone. Instead, it runs on coordinated universal time, also called as UTC, which is based on time kept by atomic clocks. So, this helps ease the time difference between NASA and the Canadian Space Agency, as well as other space partners in Russia, Japan, and Europe. Now, the question is what are these upcoming lunar missions for which we are talking about that there should be a time zone for moon? Now, in April this year, the M1 moon lander, which is developed by the Japanese firm iSpace, is scheduled to land on the moon. The Japanese Space Agency, JAXA, its robot and other payloads are also prepared for launch. Then we have the United Arab Emirates that is also prepared for the launch of its rover. We have Intuitive Machines, a Houston based business which created the Nova Sea lander, which is scheduled to touch down on the moon's south pole in June this year. Then, in fact, NASA is also preparing to send 4 astronauts into orbit around the moon next year. And that mission will pave the way for the first crewed moon landing since Apollo 17 in 1972. And currently, this is planned for 2025. So, I'm talking about the Artemis mission. This mission is launched by NASA to land humans on the moon by 2025 now, and it plans to land the first women and the first person of color on the moon. And this is going to contribute to scientific discovery and economic benefits and inspire a new generation of explorers. Now, there is something that we should know about the Project Gateway when it comes to time zone. So, first of all, what is a Project Gateway? It is a small human tended space station which will be orbiting the moon that will provide extensive capabilities to support NASA's Artemis campaign. So, the capability of this project is going to be a support. There will be a sustained exploration and research in deep space. It will include docking ports for a variety of visiting spacecraft, space for crew to live and work, and onboard science investigations to study heliophysics and human health and life sciences, among other areas. So basically, this gateway will be a critical platform for developing technology and capabilities to support moon and Mars explorations in the coming years. And this will be humanity's first space station in lunar orbit. This will be to support NASA's deep space exploration plans along with the Space Launch Systems rocket, Orion spacecraft, and human landing system that will send astronauts to the moon. But there are some challenges associated with it. The first challenge is who will set the time. The international team looking at establishing a lunar time zone is debating whether a single organization should set and keep time on the moon. Another challenge is the technical issues that are involved. Because clocks run faster on the moon than on Earth, gaining about 56 microseconds each day, the exact difference depends on the position of the clock and whether it is in orbit or on the lunar surface. A day on the moon lasts as long as 29.5 days on Earth. You should know that. And one of the most important things to consider is whether separate lunar time will be helpful and effective for the astronauts that are working there. So, what are the challenges ahead? Efforts these days are being made to develop a base and support human habitation on the moon. And the goal of setting a universal timekeeping system is to improve collaboration across all space agencies. This effort is a part of a larger project to create a complete communication and navigation system for the moon. The international space agencies, I think, will need to be prepared to settle on time zone before the proper time zone can be identified. And for that, a thorough research study is required for this. This is it for this session, guys. Thank you very much. Bye bye. Take care.